scripture lesson this morning. I want us to turn to the book of 1 Samuel, as I shared with you on the phone tree this morning. And I want to see some of that enthusiasm out of you guys. The title of our message today is In Memory of Those Who Gave the Most. And I'm so blessed as I watch those pictures, and just about every family in here is touched in some way, connected to one of those pictures. Freedom, it's been said, is not free, and boy, isn't that an understatement. We know that. And in July and then on Veterans Day, we'll be sharing and recognizing those of you that have served and still serve. And I think of Brother Bobby and our law enforcement officers, and Brother Tommy and those that protect us, as we would say civilly, here on the homeland. Thank God for them and their service as well. We're so very blessed, and I'm so thankful. I try to keep from getting emotional on these days, and it's a bit of a challenge sometimes. Let me share with you a story, as I've already said, out of 1 Samuel, and I want to start back. Well, let's start back at, I'm going to start, my story, our background will start in chapter 13 of 1 Samuel this morning. And I prayed and asked God to give me an example in the Bible of someone that gave so much. And this week in one of my devotions or quiet time, matter of fact, I think one morning when I woke up, this statement came to mind. I was thinking about this past Monday night, so it must have been Tuesday or Wednesday, about Salman Abedi that walked into that concert in Manchester in the lobby and blew himself up and killed 20-some people, wounded 60-some, 20-some of those critically. And that morning as I woke up, I thought about this statement. It is impossible, and I think this is probably, if anything else, this is the theme of our message today. It's impossible to stop someone who's willing to die for a cause. And that's why the suicide pilot in World War II, the Japanese kamikaze guys, were so dangerous, because that's what you call fully committed. Yeah. You know, and they were, I've seen those planes and never had the privilege not privileged of getting in one of them, but I've seen the plane that they flew, and it was nothing more than a motor with a set of wings and manual flying controls, nothing fancy cables. That's how they flew it. And they only had a range of like 40 or 50 miles, just a little gas tank, a motor, and a propeller and a set of wings. And the guy laid down in the cockpit and just could see out over the engine just a little bit, just enough to guide the thing with cables with his hands. And that's how they did it. A man that's committed is nearly impossible to stop. And as I was looking at these guys and listening and knowing some of the stories of her dad and my dad and the things that they went through in Second World War, and some of the other guys that we know and that we've talked about, it made me realize that these are some of the guys that were fully committed. They were fully committed. They may not have piloted a kamikaze plane, but they were totally committed to this country. I watched the soldiers yesterday as they folded up Uncle Bill's flag. Those soldiers still love this flag, and I do too.
Amen. Right.
And after they got it folded up before they gave it to family, this guy held it across his chest. And you could tell it was more than just ceremony. He loved that flag. And we still have a great country. Christians, we need to be more vocal than the devil's crowd.
Amen.
We need to be more vocal. You guys need to start getting a little grit in your craw, a little iron in your backbone, and start standing up and letting people, and when you speak Jesus' name in a restaurant, you don't have to tone down.
Amen.
Honestly, you don't. I've been sitting eating with people, and we would start talking, and then when they started talking about Christianity or something, they'd quieten down. Don't quieten down, for God's sake, get louder.
Amen.
Don't keep your mouth shut, and don't keep your voice low. Watch Brother Don. People run from him when they see him coming. If they don't want to hear about Jesus, he'll chase them down. Throw his crutch at them or something, you know. We need to get bold, folks, about it. Those people that are committed and willing to die for a cause, you can't stop them.
Amen.
You can't stop them because they're all in. They're all in. That's what we're going to be talking about this morning for just a few minutes. I know many of you have a lot of things planned today, and I appreciate you being here so much. So my story starts this morning. My story starts this morning in the 13th chapter of the book of Samuel. Saul's been king for 1 year, and then he reigned another year. So that brings us up to speed, Samuel 13:1. And Jonathan, his son, somewhere about the 2-year period, goes out and he jumps on a bunch of Philistines. Now, the bad part about this is that the Philistines are the occupying force. Matter of fact, so much so that no one's allowed in Israel to have a sword or a spear or a knife or any weapon of war, bow and arrow. As a matter of fact, when they wanted their mattocks or their hoes or their instruments, their plowshares sharpened, they had to take them down to the Philistines. They wouldn't even let them have a foundry and a forge in the blacksmith shop, where they did permit them to have files so they could sharpen, I think, their side, maybe their mattock or something or other along the way. But any manufacturing of instruments had to be done in the Philistines. So Jonathan goes out and jumps on a bunch of them. Philistine force. And though the Philistines heard of it, and Saul blew the trumpet, and the word went out across the land that Saul has smitten the garrison of the Philistines. The reality was it was his son. Someone that was willing to die for a cause. So the Philistines, when they heard that, they gathered together, quite a gathering, a great, great number. And their number was so intimidating that a lot of the Jews saw what was happening. They heard what Jonathan had done. So they decided to defect to the Philistines because they knew there was going to be war and it was not going to be good. And Saul only had 3,000 men, and he sent most of them home. And I think he only had when this thing comes down, he only had 600 men with him, and Jonathan and his armor bearer. That's it. So a lot of the Jews looked around and they said, you know, I believe what we're going to do, instead of facing an army, and the Bible says that there were in number as the sands of the seashore, besides the chariots and the horsemen, the real keen battle warriors with the real tough weapons. So I said, we'll just go over and join them. So that's important to remember. So they went over and joined them. Verse 7 of chapter 13 tells us that. And then the Philistines, they all gathered together and they started sending out raiding parties. King James calls them spoilers. They went out from the camp of the Philistines in 3 different companies. And the garrison of the Philistines, the rest of them, the whole army, huge, huge army, marched and camped at Michmash, which was a staging area for battle against the nation of Israel. And so we get to chapter 14, verse 1. And it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan the son of Saul said to the young man that bare his armor. Now bear in mind that Jonathan's already went over and jumped on the Philistines and beat up a bunch of them and caused the war to start. And let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he didn't tell Saul, his father. And Saul tarried, and the people with him. And the priest hung out too. The preacher, he stayed home too. So there's 2 of them against an innumerable multitude, a great bunch of horsemen, and several hundred chariots. And between the passages, verse 4, by which Jonathan sought to go over against the Philistine garrison, there was a sharp rock or a steep rock or a great rough rock outcrop. In other words, unscalable. So there was only one way up to where the Philistines were camped up on top of the hill. So it was blocked on both sides, to the north and to the south. So Jonathan says to his armor bearer, let's just go up there. 2 of them. Okay? 2 of them. Now what the army of the Philistines failed to take into account was that God was on Jonathan's side.
Amen.
Now you have to understand that when God's on your side,
Come on, preacher.
the other side doesn't make a whole lot of difference how many
come
of them there are. So God's on Jonathan's side.
Amen.
Jonathan said to his armor bearer, I'll tell you what we'll do. we'll go down there and we'll holler at them or throw a rock at them. Somehow or another, we'll get their attention. We'll make ourselves known to them, I think is the word he used. So they go over there, and his armor bearer says, well, what are we going to do? And by the way, he says, I'm with you, brother. Whatever you want to do, I'm your man. Okay, count on me. I'm here. And Jonathan says, well, this is what we'll do. If they say, stay there, we'll come down to you, we'll just stay there. And if they say, you guys come on up here, we'll just go on up there. But let me tell you something, armor bearer. Either way, we're gonna fight. There's gonna be a war. We didn't come out here to play tiddlywinks. We come out here to do something. Two of them. So they make themselves known to the Philistines. Philistines see them. They start making fun of them. Say, oh, the Israelites have come out of their little holes. Here come the cowards out of their little holes. And they said, why don't you come on up here? We're going to show you a thing or two. I think the King James says we're going to show you a thing. What they were saying was, you guys come on up here, we're going to show you. We're going to kill you. Jonathan and his armor bearer said, and Jonathan looks at his armor bearer and he says, look, God can deliver by few or by many. Makes no difference.
Come on now.
Let's go. The armor bearer says, I'm with you, man. So the place is so steep between these two great rock outcroppings that they have to crawl on their hands and knees to get up there. They get up to the top of the plateau where the Philistines are camped, and Jonathan has a sword, and apparently his armor bearer has a dagger or something or other. So they get up to the top, and Jonathan just flies in to killing the enemy. He just gets to the top, stands up on his feet, whoops out his sword, and commences to kill 20-some of them in a half acre there. He'd knock them down, whack them and knock them down, and the armor bearer followed along behind them, finishing them off. 2 men, thousands of soldiers, to those that gave the most, that were willing to give the most. It's impossible to stop a man that's willing to die for a cause.
Right.
Well, God got involved. God saw that somebody had enough faith and trust in Him to step out in faith like some of you are afraid to do. And God said, I believe I'll just help that old boy. So God began to shake the earth. He got the Philistines confused. They turned and started fighting with each other. There was a great earthquake. The Israelites saw what was happening. Saul heard, who's gone? Saul said, who's gone? There's a commotion going on. They said, Jonathan's gone. Saul grabbed his 600 men. They run over there. All the Philistines, all of the Israelites that had joined the Philistines said, good Lord, there's a battle going on, and looks like we're winning. We'll go back to the other side. So they start fighting the Philistines. Philistines are fighting each other. Then God starts shaking the earth and all kinds of things. It's just a frightening situation. And when all the Israelites, Hebrews, saw what was happening, they all went running over there. And when they got over there, all they had to do was just watch, because the Philistines were killing each other.
Oh yeah, come on now.
When God gets involved in something with a person that's not afraid to die for a cause, God-sized things begin happening around places. Well, Saul in his zeal. You know, the most dangerous thing in the world is misplaced religious zeal. The Twin Towers. Perfect example of misplaced religious zeal. 2 fools went straight to hell from the cockpit of an airplane.
Right.
Because they were religious zealots.
Right.
So Saul, in his great religious zeal, thought that the victory was because of him. And he said, no, hey, we're whipping them. We're whipping them. No, you've been laying back at the camp, you coward, drinking tea and eating muffins or something or other, whatever you do. The preacher's been laying around with you, eating muffins and drinking whatever preachers drink. Back then.
Oh, preacher.
Nobody was out there. So Saul said, we're whipping them, and I want to avenge myself on my enemies. So we're going to fast all day. That's real smart. Yeah. No protein, no intake, no water. We're not going to eat or drink till we kill them all. Religious zeal. You see the folly of religious zeal?
Right.
Can't wear no lipstick, your dress has to be dragging the ground, you gotta keep your hair up. Really? So then after the battle kind of settles down, Jonathan gets him a little honey, he's coming through, he's worn out, man. He started early. I mean, he started before they even joined the battle. I mean, he'd been at it 3 or 4 hours. He comes through a patch of woods and there's some wild bees nest in there, some honeybees.
Oh, yeah.
And there's some honey on the ground, been knocked off on the ground. So he takes his stick, probably the end of his spear, he sticks it in one of the honeycombs, picks it up and eats it. His eyes brightened up and he flies in to kill more enemies. Everybody else is worn out, dragging their tails, dragging. They got so hungry, so exhausted with nothing to eat or drink, till finally when the battle settled down a little bit, they started killing anything they could find and eating it raw with the blood in it. Now that's really religious zeal, isn't it? Yeah. Drive people to the point that they cannot even think to do what you want them to do because you've demanded so much legalism out of them.
Right.
Thank God for the freedom that makes us free indeed in Christ.
Right.
Yeah. So Saul then says, well, I want to go chase them down and kill all of them already. I've done good in this battle. No, you just reaped some of the rewards of someone that was not afraid to die for a cause. That's what you did. So he asked God to give him a sign. And he didn't hear anything from the Lord that night. So he decided somebody's sin. He decided somebody's sin because he didn't hear anything from the Lord that night. I don't know whether that's why God didn't speak to him that night or not. The Bible's not clear. I'm not really sure that it wasn't a problem somewhere else. I'm not sure that there was sin in the camp or someone had violated the king's order. So he cast lots and asked God, said, give me a true lot. So God honored that. And the lot fell on Jonathan. And of course, Saul said, oh, even if it's my son, if he's done something, he said, he's going to die. Lot fell on Jonathan. He said, what have you done? Jonathan told him, I got me a piece of honeycomb and eat some honey. And he said, you're going to die. It's real fatherly love, ain't it? Misplaced religious zeal. Well, the people in the army said, you may be king, but it ain't going to happen today, bud. He delivered his whole nation. And of course, as quietly as they could and as firm as they could, they said, you're not going to touch a hair on Jonathan's head.
Right. Yeah.
And he did. And the story ends. Now, out of that story, I saw 5 things that I think are pretty well common to heroes. Today, we're honoring those who answered the call.
Amen.
And I'm going to look at these 5 things that I believe are generally true in any situation. And the principles are here in this Bible story for us. Those that gave the most. Number 1, odds make no difference. Odds make no difference. Look at chapter 13, verse 5. And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel. Listen to this. Here's the stat. 30,000 chariots. Now, if you watch Ben-Hur lately, you know how dangerous those chariots can be. 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen who were trained men to fight from the back of a horse. And they were the most feared warriors in a battle until gunpowder was invented. And the people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude, and they came up and pitched at Mishmash eastward toward Beth-Aven. And it didn't even bother Jonathan at all that there was that many soldiers in the army. You see, to a man that's willing to die for a cause, the odds make no difference at all. We have the story here of 2 men who gave the most. These 2 men against this innumerable multitude. Philippians 4:13 says what? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We're intimidated by someone rejecting to take our fly or closing the door in our face or threatening to shoot us, and we don't witness for the Lord, and we keep our mouths shut when the world's killing babies and saving whales. We need to stand up and speak up and stop being a bunch of cowards and forget whether or not we're the minority. We need to stand. Right. Odds make no difference. John 14:12 through 14 says, and I summarize it, The works that, Jesus speaking, the works that I have done, he shall do, and even greater things than these shall he do. David and Goliath, what a perfect example of the odds. Not making any difference. A man almost 10 feet tall, with a spear the size of a weaver's beam, and a head on it that weighed, what, 4 or 5 pounds or something or other? And a little old boy with a slingshot.
Come on now.
Brought him down. Because a man that's willing to die for a cause and is all in, God joins and he can accomplish God-sized things. Remember Sergeant York? Remember Henry Johnson? What was it? The Harlem Hellfighters, the first black platoon that there was in World War I. Little boy born in Winston-Salem, right here, right up the road, born in Winston-Salem. His company was overrun over somewhere in France. I forgot the name of the place, but you can look him up if you get bored of the sermon. Google him today. Put that phone down. And he was wounded 21 times. He shot till he ran out of ammo. Emptied his pistol like Sergeant York did when 5 Germans charged him. He killed those 5, captured, 132 more. He was only the one standing, wasn't even supposed to be in command, but everybody else had been killed. He wiped them all out, captured all the Germans, 130 some of them, single-handedly brought them back. Prisoners of war. And that little old fellow, the Harlem Hellfighters, wound up, anyhow, he ran out of ammo, used his knife as long as he could, then took his gun and beat him over the head with it until he only had the barrel left in his hand before he finally killed the last, I forgot how many, it was an unbelievable, they called him Black Death. Just a little old boy that was sold out and willing to die for a cause. Wow. Odds make no difference. Number 2, I like this one. I really like this one. Have your children ever said to you, well, everybody's doing it? Well, as a pastor, I'd say to you, nobody's doing it. Let's start doing it. You notice here, it makes no difference what others do. Chapter 14, verse 2 and 3. And I already mentioned this. Paul tarried, verse 2, in the uttermost part of Gibeah, under a pomegranate tree. Really? Probably eating pomegranates. I love pomegranates. It's good. He's under a pomegranate tree, and the people are with him. 600 men. They're laying around under trees too. And the next verse said the preacher's still there. The priest is not gone. 2 men that were completely sold out. So it didn't make any difference for them what they did. I do a minute with Maxwell every day. John Maxwell, if you're in a position of leadership and influence, you want to be a blessing to other people, subscribe to Minute with Maxwell. His word for today was wait. And he said, let me tell you something. If you're waiting, let me tell you what you're waiting for. Ready? Nothing. They're going to come. It comes to those that get up and make it happen. Organizations that are led by people that are stepping out there, completely sold out and committed, or organizations that move forward and do things. You let the leader lead up and you'll see the organization led up. The promises of God and the teaching of the Word of God is you step out in faith and I'm with you. But you sit in the boat and you're by yourself, baby. What other people are doing make no difference. What are you waiting for? What are they waiting for? God has spoken to many of us here today, and yet we wait. He's called you to do something, and yet you wait. People that are sold out to those that gave the most, what others do make no difference. Number 3, obstacles make no difference. Yeah. Obstacles make no difference. Look at that mountain. We'll climb that sucker. Yeah. How many of you have walked from the South Rim all the way to the river, to the Rio Grande and back? It's not the Rio Grande, whatever it is. Out in the Grand Canyon, it runs down the Grand Canyon. 4-hour walk down, 8-hour walk back. Obstacles make no difference to those that are sold out and committed to do it. Personally, I'd rather ride the mule. But I mean, obstacles to those that are willing to do it, it makes no difference. That mountain's made no difference to John. You see the number of people. I've already given you the number of people. There's no fear of failure. Life is always an uphill climb. The Christian life is always an upstream swim.
Oh, yeah.
You stop paddling, guess what happens? You start floating downstream, man. You can't let up. Obstacles make no difference. George Bernard Shaw said people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. Have you ever heard that? I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get onto this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, they make them. I love what Robert Hindman said, and I've heard this so many, I couldn't find it, and I Googled it and found it. Always listen to experts. They'll tell you what can't be done and why. Then go ahead and do it. Amen. And generally, those that say it can't be done will be put to silence by those that are doing it. The world is before you. You need not take it or leave it as it was when you came in. There's your good word. Number 4, God makes a difference. This is where it gets interesting. This part I like. Verse 15 and 16. And it says, and I mentioned it to you already, and there was trembling in the host of the Philistines. In that first slaughter, verse 14, it says, Jonathan, his armor bearer, killed about 20 men in a half-acre land. There was trembling then in the host. They got frightened. And among all the people of the garrison, and the spoilers, the raiders, they got frightened. And they also trembled in the earthquake. And it was a very great trembling. God got involved. It's kind of like when Paul and Silas is in jail and they started singing hymns in the middle of the night and the earth shook and the chains fell off and the doors opened. God got involved when he became part of the situation.
Oh, yeah.
God makes a difference. Look at verse 20. And Saul and the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to the battle, and behold, look at this. Every man's sword was against his fellow. You see what it's saying? And there was very great discomfiture. The Philistines had turned on each other and were fighting each other. Wow. God makes a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, Peter walked on water. You know that? Yeah. And when you think about Peter walking on water, you always say, well, he sunk. Well, he walked.
Right.
Bless God for a little ways, didn't he?
Right.
Now listen what? If he'd have stayed in the boat, would Peter have ever walked on water? No. No. God's calling you out of your boat, guys. Get out. God's wanting to do some fantastic things with you guys. And he's doing some, but he's wanting to do more. You're not in this battle alone, by the way. Listen to me, all of you, just for a minute. I'm going to number 5 and we'll finish up. You're not in this battle alone.
Yeah.
God's with you in this thing.
Right.
Nothing surprising to him. My son-in-law texted me a couple of days ago. And he said, we hadn't figured out yet what's wrong. But he said, if it's not one of the 4 possibilities, he said, I've just got a short time to live and I'm going to see Jesus before you do. LOL. I like that attitude. Heavy on your heart, though, ain't it? But you're not in this battle alone.
Man.
And when you step out by faith, you'll discover there's someone beside you.
Oh, yeah.
And it was his plan all along. And you're just part of what he's doing. I love it. I love it. And let's finish with this. Verse 44. Sacrifices are not always appreciated. What did they do to Jesus? Killed him, didn't they? Killed him. No greater sacrifice has ever been made
Amen.
than what he did. He left the splendor of heaven. Knowing his destiny was a lonely hill called a
All right.
there to lay down his life for me. They killed him. No greater sacrifice was ever made.
Right.
Folks, the things that you do that God's calling you to do may not always be appreciated. You may be made fun of. We honor, I think of our Vietnam veterans.
Right.
Man, when I see one of them, I just love all over.
Amen.
Because we had one stupid Hollywood star that made a pure fool out of herself in this country. By going around and putting down this country and siding with those that were killing her. And society leaned her way. I'm not going to say any more about it. We need to honor those. You may not be honored if you sell out, guys. If you're willing to die for a cause, somebody's going to call you a fanatic. You know that I've had people tell me that I've got some people in this church that are Jesus freaks and religious fanatics.
Amen.
I have. I've been told that. I said, praise God. I hope they all get a bunch of it.
Amen.
You're so proper. As you remember, as we remember our heroes, I want you to remember those 5 principles. Seems like this lack of appreciation is a trademark of those that are sold out, and seems like this persecution is a trademark of those that are religious zealots, the zealous crowd. Let me say something. You don't get saved when you get baptized.
Right. Right.
Right.
And you don't get saved unless you've consciously made a decision to surrender your life.
That's right.
And some of the religions today would have us believe that if we get too emotional and raise our voice and something, we're a bunch of fanatics and
Yeah,
fools.
come on, man.
Let them call me a fool and a fanatic.
Right, brother.
Jesus said there's only one way.
Amen.
By grace through faith in our Lord Jesus Christ. If I shall confess with thy mouth, Lord Jesus, and believe in thine heart, you guys know how to be saved. Thou shalt be saved.
That's it.
Here we go, and I'm concluding. Barbara, if you'd come and play, honey. There's a step higher, and I want to take this principle, and I want to apply it to us today. Here we go. Remember the statement I made at the beginning, it's impossible to stop someone who's willing to die for a cause. Here's an application for us this morning. And I want y'all to bow your head while Barbara plays softly, if you would, please. I want you just to think for a minute. Luke chapter 14, verse 26 says, listen to this. If any man come to me and hate not his father and his mother and his wife and his children and brethren and sisters, listen to this last phrase. Yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. So here's our conclusion this morning. Are you willing? I'm just going to ask you, just point blank, and I'm just going to let the Lord deal with you. Are you willing this morning to die for a cause? Are you willing to say to the Lord, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ that liveth in me. The life I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son. In other words, are you willing this morning to give up your wants, your wills, your wishes, your desires, your goals, and everything, and surrender it all to Christ? You cannot come to Him any other way. Everything has to be laid aside when you come to Him. You may have already surrendered your life to Him. You may have been saved, but you've never completely yielded. You've always walked that safe distance from the Lord. And you know this morning that God's wanting you to walk closer to Him, but you're afraid He's going to ask you to dip into something that you've been hanging on to, whatever it is, money, pleasure, joy, habit, whatever, and you're afraid God's going to ask you to let go. And you've just never really, truly, down deep in your heart, been willing to let Him have every little room in your heart. He wants it all. There's not many of us here this morning. Many of our congregation are around on vacation or at the beach or the mountain or wherever they go, you know. But you're here this morning and God's spoken to your heart. Are you willing to surrender and commit to Him to the point that, yes, Lord, I'm willing to die to myself, whatever you want me to do? If you've never been saved, Lord Jesus, I want you to save me. If you have been saved and you're just not being committed, Lord Jesus, this morning I commit. I'm going to pray. And then Joe's going to come and lead us in a couple of verses of a song. And if God's spoken to your heart and you want to come this morning, I'd love for you to come during that invitation time. I'll pray with you. I'll call someone up to pray with you. We'll do whatever we need to do, spend as much time as we need to. But after I pray, I invite you to come have God's dinner. Maybe church membership, maybe salvation, maybe a commitment to a mission field or a mission project that God's been dealing with your heart about. Father, in Jesus' name, I thank you for this day, for this service, for this message, for the men and women that have served this country, for their sacrifice. Bless through this invitation. Have your way. Work in hearts today, God. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Joe.